So going into this game without Martial and Casemiro was obviously going to be a massive blow for Ten Hag, though we didn't see any significant tactical changes to the system, with McTominay coming into the midfield double pivot alongside Eriksen and Weghorst starting up front. And as we usually see, United defended in a narrow 4-2-3-1 shape, with Antony and Rashford sitting high and narrow in close proximity to Fernandes and Weghorst. And when Arsenal had the ball during their build-up phase in their defensive third, United would allow Ramsdale to play out through either of the two centre-backs, with United's front two then looking to engage them. Arsenal would vary their possession shape from a 2-3-2-3, with Partey playing as the deep single pivot and Zinchenko and White holding wider positions, to more of a 3-2-2-3, with Ben White dropping a little deeper, giving Arsenal a wider base in a temporary back three to circulate the ball, with Zinchenko inverting on the left side alongside Partey. Fernandes would sit on Partey with McTominay and Eriksen following Odegaard and Xhaka behind, and Rashford and Antony were sitting high, ready to apply pressure to either side of Arsenal's wide base, with Gabriel on the left and either Saliba or Ben White on the right. Now usually United's high press is pretty good. The aim is to have the two wide attackers, Antony on the right and Rashford on the left, retaining high and narrow positions, which allows United to sustain an aggressive press even when the opposition is able to switch the ball to the other side of play. In a more conservative pressing system, when the ball is on United's left side, Antony would retain a deeper and wider position on United's right, filling the space that the opposition's left back is pushing into. However, Ten Hag instead instructs the wide attackers on the far side to retain a more advanced central position, using their position to cut off a pass back across goal to the other centre back. Antony in this example is in a fantastic position to immediately initiate a press as soon as the ball gets played to Gabriel, the left-sided centre-back. However, the disadvantage of using these higher player positions to coordinate an aggressive press is that Antony's not able to cover the space behind him. And so if the opposition can play a direct pass out to the fullback whilst Antony is in a high position, then this can be a constant outball against United's narrow 4-2-3-1 press. And this is exactly what happened throughout the game. Whilst United were fairly successful at the start of the game in using their man-to-man pressing to somewhat nullify Arsenal's ball progression through the centre of the pitch, with McTominay and Eriksen following Odegaard and Xhaka, attempting to stop them being able to pull off into the space wide of United's midfield. And it was always going to be a tough task to keep up with this throughout the whole match, as this sort of pressing has to be extremely well coordinated and timed, and even if players drop off in the press even half a second against a side as good in possession as Arsenal, that can give them the opportunity to play out of your whole press. Here we can see that as Arsenal have the ball in their build-up phase, United are defending in their narrow 4-2-3-1, with Rashford and Antony sitting ready to engage the wide points of Arsenal's back line, which in this situation is a back three with Ben White on the right and Gabriel on the left. As Saliba plays the pass forward into Odegaard, positionally United are fairly well set. Rashford is goal side of Ben White and so is able to press immediately if the ball gets switched out to him, whilst McTominay and Fernandes are both tight with Xhaka and Partey in the centre of the pitch, and Lisandro Martinez out of picture is ready to follow Nketiah should he drop off into the space between Eriksen and McTominay. But as Saliba plays a pass into Odegaard, you can see that Eriksen isn't quite close enough to the Norwegian to stop him attempting a first time switch of play, and because on the far side Antony has retained a higher and narrower position, looking to press Gabriel if the ball is switched, this leaves United vulnerable to this quick switch of play out to Zinchenko on the far side, and because Wan-Bissaka has to retain a deeper position alongside the high and wide Martinelli, United aren't able to sustain the press, and this allows Arsenal to beat United's press and progress the ball into their half. At the other end, I thought Arsenal were a lot more successful in their pressing, forcing United along a lot more often and overall just doing a more effective job at stopping United's ball progression out of their build-up phase. And this was why Arsenal seemed to control possession a lot better in the first half than United. We can see here that as De Gea has the ball, Arsenal are pressing in a lopsided 4-2-3-1, with Saka on the right retaining a high and narrow position, allowing him to exert pressure on Lisandro Martinez directly, with Nketiah sitting on Varane, with Xhaka pushing up onto McTominay, and Martinelli holding a slightly deeper position to Saka on the left side, ready to press Wan-Bissaka if the ball goes out to him. And if we look at Arsenal's right side, which is United's left, we can see that Arteta has directly targeted Lisandro Martinez, recognising that he is United's best ball player from those deep positions, and so having Saka starting high forces United away from Martinez and over to the right side, where they have significantly less quality on the ball, and so it's a lot easier to press Wan-Bissaka, Varane and McTominay, rather than Martinez, Eriksen and Shaw on the left. However, in order to compensate for Saka's high position on the right, Ben White behind him would also push very high up the right flank, allowing him to be close enough to Luke Shaw to sustain the pressure should David De Gea look to bypass Arsenal's high press with a lofted pass over Saka out to Shaw. And so this would give Arsenal almost a 3-4-3 pressing shape, with Arteta prepared to go man-to-man at the back, with Saliba moving across to the right side, allowing Ben White to push further forward. When Luke Shaw did receive the ball on the left, Arsenal continued their aggressive man-to-man press, which closed off all options in close proximity, with here Luke Shaw looking for a pass down the line, and Partey follows Eriksen closely, meaning that when the pass does go into him, he isn't able to turn, and Arsenal are able to pen United in and win the ball back high up the pitch. And it was from this sort of pressing situation where the Arsenal equaliser stemmed from. Here we see as De Gea has the ball, Saka and Nketiah have closed off the short passing options to either of the two centre-backs, with Ben White high ready to engage Luke Shaw. And so we see United shuffle their back line, looking to open up a passing lane for David De Gea. And this comes from Wan-Bissaka dropping deep on the right flank, which happens to play in perfectly to Arteta's pressing trap. As when the pass gets played out to him, you can see that he doesn't have any real options, with Varane forced to make an odd run forward, and combine this with the fact that Martinelli is positioned ready to immediately apply pressure, and with Wan-Bissaka not being the best technically, particularly under pressure, this allows Martinelli to win the ball high up the pitch, and now Arsenal have possession in United's defensive third. From here Arsenal get a corner, and so end up being able to sustain the pressure on United in their defensive third, and the ball is on the left side, and between Xhaka, Zinchenko and Odegaard, Arsenal work the ball really well into a good crossing position, and from here as Xhaka is about to deliver the cross, you can see at the back post that Nketiah is making a run around the blind side of Wan-Bissaka, who has a complete lapse in concentration and so doesn't follow Nketiah at all, whose movement here is fantastic to be fair, getting goal side of Wan-Bissaka, and the cross is so good that from here it's a simple header to put past De Gea and put Arsenal level. This goal was sandwiched between two moments of brilliance, with the first coming from Rashford, who receives the ball from Bruno Fernandes after a turnover in Arsenal's half, and from here his ability to shift the ball quickly with a subtle chop, allowing him to then glide past Thomas Partey is phenomenal, and from here he's able to work the ball across onto his right foot and release a superb low-driven strike into the bottom corner past Ramsdale. But Saka's goal to put Arsenal 2-1 up in the second half was arguably equally as good. Eriksen should definitely do better to get closer to Saka and stop him being able to shift the ball onto his left foot this easily, but from this position the strike like Rashford's is superb and puts Arsenal into the lead. The issue for Manchester United in the second half came from the centre of midfield, with Arsenal just being better technically, defensively and physically. A great example was here when Ramsdale was able to beat United's frontline press with a lofted pass out to Zinchenko, and from here the Ukrainian's ball control is perfect. He's easily able to wander inside past a labouring Antony, and Partey makes a storming run off of the back of Fernandes, and with one pass Zinchenko is able to take out Antony, McTominay and Fernandes from the game, and usually you'd expect Casemiro to be coming across immediately to plug this gap. But with Eriksen being the deepest midfielder, Ten Hag just didn't have that physicality or athleticism that he needed to sustain this sort of high press, which United continued to push for throughout the second half. Overall, I just feel like especially in the second half, Arsenal's individual players, particularly at the back and in midfield, were just a level above United's, and this allowed Arsenal to constantly play through United's press and work the ball up the pitch. Now United's man-to-man press could be well coordinated and in sync, but all it would take would be for someone like Odegaard in the centre of the pitch to break away from his marker, receive a pass, and he has the quality to be able to switch play with a first time pass as he did in the first half, and just like that Arsenal are able to take United's front four out of the game and are able to drive forward into the space wide of McTominay and Eriksen. Lisandro Martinez would equalise with a fantastic header just before the 60th minute mark, and from this point onwards the game became a lot more open, and this was because I felt like United's press became a lot less vertically compact, which allowed Arsenal to progress the ball out a lot easier. Whereas Arsenal's backline maintained a high defensive line and looked to engage United as soon as the ball was active in United's defensive third, United instead weren't as persistent with applying pressure this high up, but the front four still retained very high and narrow positions, but the backline were dropping off a lot deeper, and so United's defensive shape was a lot less compact, and as I said, this allowed Arsenal to move the ball into United's half and then their defensive third a lot easier. However, despite Arteta's defensive system being certainly more coordinated and well structured than Ten Hag's in the second half, I don't think this is where United lost the game. Yes, Arsenal were now getting into United's defensive third a lot more often, but this also gave United the space further up the pitch to counter into, and potentially take advantage of. However, I have to say, apart from Rashford, United really offered nothing of substance. I thought Antony was atrocious in this game and looked completely out of his depth. A lot of United fans will go straight to the comments and say something like, "Why are we hating on our players? We need to stop criticising them," which is fucking stupid. This isn't an under-12 Sunday League game, and that's the typical loser mentality that the fan base has picked up over the last few seasons. Antony is not a player in his teenage years like Garnacho, who has just burst onto the scene. He's meant to be a player that comes in and improves United individually in attack. United can't wait 2 or 3 seasons for Antony to start looking like he should be starting week in, week out. If that is the case, then he should never have been signed, particularly at this stage of United's rebuild process. Antony cost £85 million and is on £200,000 per week. He has to start delivering. Yes, he has scored a few sensational goals at the start of the season, but throughout the majority of this season so far, and particularly in this game, I would probably rather have Garnacho or Elanga or even Amad Diallo starting ahead of him. A great example of Antony wasting a fantastic opportunity was here, as Wan-Bissaka puts in a great tackle on Martinelli and Weghorst is able to pinch the ball in front of Gabriel, and you can see here as he plays Antony in that the Brazilian is ahead of the Arsenal chasing pack, and from here he has to be getting into the box and creating something of substance. Instead he races forward, loses control of the ball, and Partey is easily able to recover. And this wasn't the first instance of Antony being wasteful, but I'm going to be doing a whole separate video not just analysing Antony's faults, but also looking at what Ten Hag can do to solve this situation. So make sure if you want to see that video you subscribe to the channel and click the bell so you don't miss a video when it comes out. But it wasn't just Antony. I thought without Casemiro in the centre of the pitch, United completely lacked any bite or tenacity, and we could see this right at the start of the game. Here the ball is in the centre of the field and there's a 50-50 or maybe a 40-60 duel in favour of the Arsenal player between McTominay and Saka, and I think if Casemiro is on the pitch he comes across assertively and wins this duel. However, neither Eriksen or McTominay have the defensive presence or tackling ability to do this, and so Saka gets there first, taking United's whole midfield out of the game and now moving the ball onto Xhaka, who's able to drive forward directly at United's back line. And so whilst United were unable to take control of these loose balls in the centre of the field and stamp their authority on the game, Partey was excellent at anticipating and then winning these loose balls, which seems like a small thing, but doing this consistently over a full game, particularly in a big game like this, is the difference between losing and winning the midfield battle. And frankly, despite United losing this game via Nketiah's goal in the last few minutes, I thought Arsenal were the better side, and when we look at the XG for both sides, we can see this quite clearly. Arsenal finished the game with an XG of 2.90 to United 0.27, showing clearly they were the better side and created the better chances. And even though this definitely came from Arteta getting his tactics right, both in regards to his pressing system and in possession as well, I think the key factor in this game was not only do Arsenal have better quality players on the pitch at this present time, they also have players who perfectly fill the role that Arteta wants for them in the side. For me, McTominay and Antony are just nowhere near the level they need to be at the moment, and United desperately missed Casemiro and Martial. Even United's persistence in playing out from the back showed that De Gea and Wan-Bissaka just aren't the right players for this system. Both are two excellent players who I think could definitely go to other top clubs and be successful. But when you compare what Ten Hag currently has at his disposal to the team that Arteta and Arsenal have built over the last few seasons, you can see that Arsenal are a team who are well ahead in their development. So let me know your thoughts on the game in the comment section below, check the description for more videos, subscribe to the channel and click the bell so you do get notified when my videos come out, and give the video a like if you enjoyed it, and you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter for more content as well.